Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thanks for coming to the channel. I so much appreciate it. I'm in a good mood. I'm on top of my game here in the fish room, and I wanted to share a tour with you. I will miss some things, and I will probably dwell on some things too long, but who knows? Who's to say? That's the fun of YouTube. That's the fun of fish keeping. So this is sort of a panorama of the fish room, which is sort of centrally located in my apartment on the second floor of a pre-war building here in Chicago, and it was converted into this wonderful space about a year ago. We're almost a year into living in the property, and this fish room was my personal passion project, and my wife super supported it. And I don't know, this hobby saves my life, right? During tough times, and hell, during good times. It's just such an unbelievable, joyous undertaking, and I want you to feel that way too. So hopefully these videos and all the others on YouTube with people just like me will inspire people just like you. So with that beginning, let's get into it. Where? Huh? Huh? Eh? E? All right, we'll just start from the left. First, this is a 20-gallon Oase Cinescaper, a newly available kit here in the United States from Oase, who you know from their fabulous filters, of which I have several. I just did a heavy-duty clean of this tank the other night. So let's look at what we've got. There's a school of pencilfish, Becksford pencilfish. You see them right there with the bronze U. There is a small group of rosy tetras and a whole bunch of green neons and this fabulous honey gourami. So that's a pretty big bioload for a 20-gallon, but I've got tons of plants and I'm always on the cleaning game. I'm not gonna lie, I tend to overstock versus understock. It doesn't start that way, but it's part of what happens, you know, one more fish or add to the group, and I'm so guilty of that. If you're gonna do it, then you gotta watch your water parameters especially careful, and you gotta go with live plants if your fish aren't plant eaters, and obviously none of these are. So I trimmed the Rotala H-Ra, I think that's what that is in the back, and in the center, that's Ludwigia repens. I'm thinking of pulling it. I cut the tops off, and I just don't like all that root stock that tends to grow from the mid-level of the plant down. I mean, it's kind of cool, it's kind of gnarly, but I'm thinking of Pogostemon octopus, a fast-growing, really interesting textured plant would totally look great there. And so I'm close to pulling the trigger on that. I've got an intense carpet of, well, it started as only dwarf hairgrass, but now it's mixed in with sage, some crypts, and probably another kind of plant or two. And I sort of let that happen, and the only thing I pull out of the carpet is as much of the moss that used to be a bigger element in this tank. Little strands will fall into your carpet, like that one right there. You see, that's moss, and it grows like crazy. And it's not that it's bad for the tank, but it can take over. So I pull that out and I trim the whole thing like mowing. I'm kind of mowing a lawn. I don't pull anything out, you know, I just let it become part of the carpeting effect. At least that's my strategy for now. I sort of don't have a choice. It's become just a mixture of plants. I've got the Hygrophila pinnifada occupying the spiderwood in the center portion, so I have three distinct territories or levels or stairways in this tank. And in some respects it's like the Wallstad method, but I've got hardscape in the center and doing some other things that Wallstad people don't do. But everything is getting along swimmingly in this tank, and I'm really happy with the results, other than that one issue I talked about. Wondering what you think. Should I just let it go? I mean, the tops will become red and beautiful, and that'll take about 3 weeks, and I could let these continued with that beautiful red growth. That'll happen there as well. And so that's this tank in a nutshell. All right, we're gonna swoop left and talk about the ADA 20 2.5 gallon. It's the ADA's high version of a 20, so it's got a couple more gallons of water, which I really like, and it's obviously higher. I did a heavy duty cut on this about a week and a half ago, and so things are starting to grow in, and I did put some of that pogo stem and octopus. That's what's in the center there behind the driftwood, and you can see that fun texture, which has a lot of air in between it, and it I believe offsets the other kinds of plants in a really nifty fashion. This is Hipperoides down here, and that's what I really cut back, and so there's a lot of air for it to grow up with those yellow and red fronds, and that's the AR plant there. And this is Sterigen repens, which is carpeting as well as growing to the light. And as long as the bottom part isn't messed up, I don't mind the effect of having it 3 to 5 inches high. A lot of people cut it down considerably, but you know, I'm not a lot of people. This is Blixa japonica. I brought a bunch of the plantlets from this colony to my local fish store a while back, and this will eventually become too big, and I'll do the same thing. I'll pull plantlets. You sort of pull them apart a little bit. It's an interesting plant that way. This is Rotala indica back there. And then the SB rasboras school together with the iconic Ember tetras, and so you see the bronzes and the reds. When I let this tank get too jungly, those fish sort of get lost, but now I'm really liking the way they look and their behavior. You can see they're tightly schooled for the most part, but they're super cordial, and the red and the bronze, instead of clashing, which I sort of thought it did before, where it was a little too matchy-poo and therefore like a jump cut in filmmaking, the two were too similar and yet slightly different, and that effect is generally not aesthetically pleasing, but I'm happy with it here. I've got the honey gourami in here as well, a great little centerpiece type fish. You can keep them solo, which I'm doing, and you saw it in the other tank. I've got one here, very inexpensive and gorgeous fish, and that's a male, and males are the more lovely of that species. And of course, Charlie's Angels, there they are. To the left, a white platinum, juvenile, getting bigger though, and then this beautiful sort of zebra lace, gorgeous fish. And then this guy, who I'm a little bit worried about, he's just much more tentative and reserved than the other three, and he doesn't eat like the other three, but it's been a month, so I think he's doing pretty good. And then the alien, fantastic, beautiful longfin bristlenose pleco, that albino strain. I mean, look at that. Is that just, if that doesn't draw someone into fish keeping or stun people into who might believe freshwater fish can't compete with marine, that fish doesn't take second fiddle to any fish I've ever had, and I've kept a lot. And then there's other creatures, cleanup crew, the whole bit. I've been running air in this tank to sort of, well, to oxygenate it, do what you do, and it really has helped. I was reluctant to do the bubbles thing, but when the tank starts to get older, it can fight new old tank syndrome, sort of constantly revitalizing and freshening the overall effect that the tank has on its inhabitants. And I found that to be true as soon as I started aerating. It didn't affect the CO2 levels in any bad way, and it can do that, and it stimulated a lot of the fish, kept the water even more moving than the outflow pipe, that lily pipe you see there in the right. And long story short, I think it's a good move. I'm liking that I can still see the anchoring piece of ironwood. I think that's what that is. It's two pieces I pushed together to form like a throne and an island effect. in the beginning when it was just hardscape, and you could find that video because it's so different in a way. I call it the Game of Thrones tank, where all you saw was the bold Ciro stone, God, you know, excuse my pronunciation, and then the ironwood, and it was sort of Game of Thronesy. But plants add such a feminine mystique to a tank, and obviously that's mitigated all the sort of sword and sorcery type effect that this original hardscape had. So pretty happy with this one. Now we're going to swing left, and this is the rack system. I'm so glad I researched and found this one. It's worked like a charm. I got specific polymer shelving things to put underneath it whenever water spills, and it spills all the time, and plant debris and anything, even an occasional jumped fish. It's so easy to manage this sort of beautiful like hard plastic, and it fits like a glove into the system, and it's not too hard to figure all that out, right? I won't be putting a bunch of links because honestly I forgot some of those suppliers, but I've got all 4 shelves occupied. On the top I've got my sort of nostalgic collection of old pieces from the hobby. You see the pen packs and Wonder Bar and all that super duper graphics and fun stuff from as old as the 30s, this glass tank, and even older actually, this beautiful bronze jewel aquarium. I've got an old piece of bonsai hardscape or driftwood in there, and then the ceramic bubblers, and just all this wonderful stuff I found on eBay, Etsy, and thrifting that occupy the top shelf, because I'd have to be pretty crazy to put tanks up there. And so I did this, and I think it's a wonderful way to enhance this hobby. I recommend what you do outside the tank after a fashion is going to become a, you know, very integral part of your fish room or the hobby, even if you just have one tank. I just did a video on this one, the 12-gallon long, which features a large group of Chili rasboras. There is one gudgeon in here, and honestly I want him out because he's a predator, and I think these fish will behave even more freely, if you will, if that guy isn't in there. So if I can catch him out, I'll put him in another tank. I'm giving up trying to put oddballs in this tank. I'm gonna get another schooling rasbora or tetra to accompany these guys, and they'll both dither them out from the corners like that. You see I really love emergent growth. I've got different hygrophilias in there. You could see the rootstock. Look at how intense and fun that is. That's all from this stem up here, and honestly, what's going on under here looks better than up here, but I can encourage fresh new growth just by clipping those stems. In a couple weeks I'll have new leaves. I've got some plants from the Home Depot, just really garden variety, pun intended. More of my fun old ceramics, some hardscape materials, just creating still lifes to surround the tank and complement the emergent effect of that piece of driftwood. And obviously there's some extending out here, epiphyte plants. Here's a stem cutting, and it's not pretty, but for me it's kind of awesome because I'm going to watch these leaves bush out and this rootstock grow longer, and that's just fun for me. I mean, I was a gardener as well as a fish keeper, and I can do both in this hobby, obviously. Excuse my voice. Down here, I also just did a video of this fabulous tank, wondering if there was just too much plant growth or is it just right. That literally is the video before this one, so I won't dwell on it. It features white cloud mountain minnows and a host of plant life, and a gorgeous super red bristlenose pleco and other inhabitants. Now down here, which is something I often forget, I've got a little experiment going. These are tops from the Rotala indica and the Ludwigia repens, and I basically just have them in gravel with some plant fertilizer and this UNF disc light, which is super cool, and it plugs in with like a UBS, like a computer style plug, and I've got a wonderful extension cord surrogate, which I'll show you in a second, so I don't even have to use up precious plug space. And I don't know what I'm doing with that other than seeing how well the plants grow without any other support besides water and light. This is my Z brine shrimp hatchery. It's currently not running, which is rare for me because I'm usually doing that 24/7. But I'm trying to slow down on the live food just a little bit because it encourages hydra and other plants. Plus it spoils the fish. And so I'm taking a couple breaks from that. This is a 5-gallon, and it was just a grow out tank for plants, and well, it still is, but the plants are doing incredibly well. All of these are represented in my other tanks, and all of these have a specific place. Ludwigia repens to the left, Rotella indica, Pogostemon octopus, Hygrophila pinnifada, Christmas moss, and dwarf sage, and even a little bit of water sprite. And I've got a bunch of cherry shrimp in here. Oh, and also these black Venezuelan cory cats. There's a mystery snail. Look at these great catfish. They're so cool. Jet black. I wish I had 6 of them. I only have 3 in here with panda cory adoras as well, and about 20 cherry shrimp. Okay, so, and obviously certain hardware running the tanks and supply cubbies also here as well. And then if we move to the left, you see another fun display of old aquarium books and literature devoted to this hobby. And I actually read those all the time. I just pull one out and read a chapter, and it's just fun to see where the hobby began and what it's like now. More of these outrageously tacky aquarium decor from pen plaques, which I found on Etsy and eBay, some ceramic stuff, and a SpongeBob piece, you know, that fun stuff. And I'm using all of these Container Store dry wood boxes as a crating system on top of a simple iron and slate table, if you will. And I'm using all space below it for more of the same. Right here's where I sit to enjoy all this. A little artwork on the walls and that super duper fish wallpaper. One of the leather jackets from my vintage leather jacket collection sitting on a display thing that's also vintage. And that makes full circle here. I do want to highlight a couple things, bear with me. The closet, right? So you cannot have a fish room. Most of this is all devoted to my fish stuff. Now there's taxes, there's a few things, you know, household goods, light bulbs, things like that, and everything's marked and labeled so it doesn't become just a cluster F. But this is really a necessary component if you want to keep your fish rooms even remotely neat and tidy. The changing buckets. I've got a live culture of peanut beetle larvae that I'm growing in there, and I'll talk about that in another video. But I wanted to highlight, if you're gonna have a fish room, honestly, think about storage. I use all of that, all the racking systems, and that closet is full. Before I close the video, I'll come out and pull back on the massive display, right? Obviously, this tank is the mother of all my tanks, 135 gallons of freshwater aquarium bliss. I mean, look at that. I just did a water change today, and so all the fish have that vim and vigor that you get right after a water change. It's got a group of different kinds of angelfish. There you see a black, a straight, what do you want to call it? Not a Dantum angelfish, but a kind of a classic zebra striped angelfish, a koi. I've got rainbow fish, which are a great fun counterpoint to the delicate slow moving angel. You get these fabulous Australian rainbow fish, Bosmanis, and then these are Millennium rainbow fish Neither of these groups are anywhere near their full color and size potential. I'd say 25% more growth on both and even more intense color. We've got Harlequin Rasboras, you can see them with their iconic color and shape. And then I've got Cardinal Tetras as well. And I've got 4 rams in here, long fin Bolivian rams, and they're doing really well together. Look at that gorgeous male, right? They were so innocuous when I put them in, but now they've really colored up and sized up. I'm happy as can be. The cryptocorn, these plants here are becoming intense, which is pretty cool given that's where the sand is. It's fairly inert there. There's no nutrition. A colony of Bucephalandra epiphytes occupying the hardscape in the center, which has been stripped beautifully clean by my Plecostomus catfish, of which I have all different kinds in here. I've got a Farwalla catfish, or the whip, it's kind of like a whiptail. Maybe it is. There's whiptails and there's Farwallas, and I don't want to get into the phenotypes, but I've got one. Here's a Pinoy, or a Pinoy black and blue, gorgeous fish, right? Look at that, boom. Nothing in here is too terribly exotic or out of reach for the average aquarist. Obviously, when you've got this many creatures, you're talking about a pretty significant investment. But this is my life, a middle-aged man, and you know, I don't have a Porsche. This is what I do. This is what I wanted. This is what saves my life. So you saw the fish room, and you see this tank, and I'm gonna stop because I've hit 22 minutes almost. That's long for me. I hope you support and have watched this whole video. I get it if you didn't. Thank you so much for being a part of my channel and my life. Ciao for now, and as always, keep your hands in the tank.